All right, I'm here at City Council joined by Mayor AALBERS for a look at the year. So thank you so much for making the time and sitting down with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's kind of start off. It was an interesting year, I guess, for all cities across the country with the legalization of marijuana. So talk to me a little bit about the process of drafting those bylaws this year, and what were some of the major things you heard from residents in that process?
Well, I think that the process was something totally new. So we had taken a substance, and the federal government had taken a substance that was deemed illegal and are saying it's going to become legal. So it encompassed a lot of areas, certainly public safety, and the public was very concerned. It's easy to become a user or a consumer in this case, as we know today, but at the time we wanted to make sure that we kept the public's interest at heart, and that's what the public told us. We had the open house, we had the opportunity to hear your voice with council, so people were able to come out and express their concerns, from young families to elderly people to business people. Some were for it, some were against it, some wanted the city to be in the business, generating revenue. So it challenged us on many different fronts. We basically adjusted 4 bylaws because it involved everything from public areas to business, to those kind of things. So there was a lot of areas covered, and I really think we went through it very well. We put in a moratorium at the beginning. I think a lot of people were concerned, why did we put a 6-month moratorium in place? It was simply to ensure that we had time to prepare. Because the last thing we wanted to do, and I've heard it from many people, is if the city is going to set laws or bylaws, make sure that you do it right the first time. Because once you set it, you then create precedents. And it was very, very important. And the administration heard that message very clearly from council and the residents, and that's what they formed. And with very little tweaking, if any, we were able to produce the bylaws that we have in place today.
Yeah, definitely. Another huge major topic the whole year was the wastewater treatment plant. So obviously the deadline's approaching quickly. You've secured some funding. You've also, the city has taken out a fairly large loan. So where are we at with the funding, and what challenges are you still faced with?
So basically, to go back through the steps, so we applied for funding to various federal and provincial models for funding applications. We've received to this point $6 million from the federal government and the government of Alberta through a small communities grant, which the city would match with $9 million. So that's the first $9 million towards the $80 million. The city did approve, council approved a borrowing bylaw that when we're ready to go and borrow the money, we can borrow up to $40 million. Our intention is not to borrow the $40 million. Target would be $30 million or less, depending on what we have in the bank and in reserves to take advantage of that. So it's really a matter of the remainder of the money. That money has been applied for through to the province of Saskatchewan, through a funding program that they have with the federal government. And this is what's unique about our city. Because of the bi-provincial nature, we had to do 2 sets of funding applications. We've done the same to Alberta. Again, one government sometimes functions faster than the other, or processes. So we're waiting patiently on the Alberta government. We have a commitment from the Saskatchewan government subject to approval from the federal government. So we have to do the same thing with the Alberta government. Patience, I've been told, is a virtue, and it's getting really tested in my world, because this is that project. As you said, we have a time deadline. The deadline currently exists based on our operational license. We'll be discussing that with the Minister of Environment in Saskatchewan once we know where we're at with funding, when we can come back and say, Minister, we can deliver a project that meets what you're asking for at this point. Can you help us? And I think that I hope the province of Saskatchewan, the Minister of Environment's been very cooperative to this point. I'm sure he'll hear our case, and we'll deal with it accordingly. Then it will hopefully take off some pressure.